All right, here we are, ready for round two of this webcam local, brought to you by PPG and Three Swords Productions. Um, that's fine. I can look over there. Um, Looks like this matchup that we're going to focus on right now is a little Kid versus Katakuri. Um, so Kid's going to be looking to get some like extra attacks going on. Katakuri is going to be looking to do some ramping. Start off with a Sparrow and attack for 5. Now we go back to Kid. Kid's going to attack for 5 back. Katakuri's just going to take it. Play a. Oh, okay, we're doing some film stuff. Yeah, Film Kid. I always like that Nami. That Nami's great. Just draws a card every turn, forever. Pro Sparrow on the other side, also very good, just a solid attacker. Keeps applying pressure every turn, and they don't want to ever deal with it because then you just get to draw a card. So, the Nami requires at least one Dawn to, uh, keep being tapped to keep drawing the cards though. Revealing Plan of Pudding, revealing a Charlotte Lin Lin. That's going to be great for next turn when we go up to 7. Convenient to find that this turn. And basically the Katakuri player is just going to try to keep applying pressure, maybe equip some Dawn, attack, get some information, attack with the Pero Sparrow. Just keep ramping up. Then we'll see what happens with the film cards. The film cards are interesting because I feel like there's a lot of just like 3-drop 5Ks and like kind of vanilla type stuff going on. So we'll see if the Kid player can kind of go a little bit more wide and overwhelm the yellow player. I think that's kind of their goal, is to hope that you can go wide and overwhelm them before they start 10-dropping you. Alright, here's an attack with Nami. And a pay. Top 3. Do you know what card that is?
Which one?
Another one that they just found off of Nami.
No, I wasn't looking. Sorry.
That's okay.
You got me. Great talking.
Yeah. With Kid, I think that it's very interesting. It feels like we're gonna try to set up this big game or in-game scenario where we just like put 7 Dawn on him and then pay 3 and untap him and attack twice and just like hope that that's good enough. So we got to try to get the Katakuri player to low enough to where that plan can be a thing. We got Brook in play. That means we're gonna put another Nami into play. This is the going wide that I was talking about. We're just gonna overload with 5Ks, go wide, and just try to be like, I'm gonna attack you 6 different times in a turn with various amounts of Dawn. Luffy's a good pickup. That'll be coming down next turn. Probably put another character into play and set us up a blocker so that way we can be insulated against those maybe a 12K attack or something from the Katakuri side. I do like those wanted sleeves with the Gear 5 on it. In the anime, we just got all the new bounties in the latest episode. All the updated bounties for the whole Straw Hat crew after Wano. Good old Luffy's up to 3 billion berries. 3 billion berry man. But to be fair, Eustace Kid and Trafalgar Law also became 3 billion berry people. They're all 3 billion berries now. Attack with a smoothie. Just another attack. Gonna counter out of that one. I like Jewelry Bonnie quite a bit. It's just so fragile. Basically, it feels like you get like 1 activation out of it. If you ever get 2, you feel like you're on top of the world. A heal 1, okay. That's probably just making sure that we can survive long enough to build that board up. But it's also healing 1, so the Katakuri player is never going to be upset with having an extra life to work with. Especially when they're about to start 10 drop in a couple turns. We got Another Nami activation. Let's see if we can find another film card. Just keep building up our hand. There's always film cards in the deck, so it's gonna be hard to miss. That's probably almost all film cards. Counter out there with Randolph. Attack with Brooke on Smoothie. Smoothie getting out of the table. Another attack with the Nami. Looks like the category player is going to take that one. I mean, they're at 5. I feel like it's a pretty easy take at that point. Just draw a card. Like there might have been a trigger there. They were deciding whether or not to activate. Just decided to put the card in the hand instead. Attack for 5. I think one of the things that's interesting is to see if there's any time where it's beneficial for the kid player to just like attack. A Thunderbolt off the top means goodbye one of those Namis. It's very well timed. It's always good to get those Thunderbolts as triggers and not have to actually play them and crit yourself. Cool. Luffy into Zoro. I believe that Zoro is just a vanilla. It's a 4/6, but 4/6 pretty powerful. Requires at least 2k to get countered out of an attack from that. The more 6ks we can have, the better. From as far as the go wide strategy from the green player. The yellow player has a very large hand though, so but to be fair, they also have a lot of cards that don't counter in their deck, so a large hand doesn't always mean that they have a lot of counter power. It looks like they might be consulting someone beside them.
Small child.
Oh, okay, small child. Yeah, looks like little. Alright, Katakuri coming down. Classic play on this turn. Yep, we're picking up the Thunderbolt. Alright, Katakuri, what are we gonna tuck? We're gonna tuck a get a Luffy out of there. Yep. Get the blocker out of the way so we can keep swinging with the Big Mom. Putting the Luffy on top is very interesting, because that means that if they take this damage, then they're going to just replay the Luffy and put another thing into play.
I think that means 10 drop is coming.
Yeah, I think it does probably mean a 10 drop is coming, but it also, it's weird because if they want to draw the Luffy, they can right now, because they can just take it. But the kid player is electing to not take any damage, which does mean that the Luffy is probably going to get critted out by a Big Mom next turn. And that's just one blocker that the kid player doesn't have. Kid might be trying to power up for a big, push this turn. Only 3 life. 3 life, is a good amount, but at the same time, you're going to be able to attack 5 times this turn minimum if you want to. So you got the Nami attack to lead off. Start with the smallest attack. The Katakuri player took it, which is a good sign, but they also probably knew they had the Shirahoshi on top. I think they looked at their life with the Katakuri last turn. So Shirahoshi, pretty good trigger to get into play. Now I come in with 6 with the Brook, and then another. Okay, waiting for a second, and then probably another 6 attack with the Zoro. Yep. Just keep that 2 life so that way the kid isn't threatening, just absolute lethal. Yeah, could be Doflamingo coming down as 10 drop, keeping the Katakuri and the 7 drop tap down. Yep, there it is. 10 drop Dofi, gonna keep the 7 drop and the Katakuri tapped for a turn. And then we'll probably see this turn a 10 drop from the Katakuri side, and an attack with the Katakuri on probably a character. But the Katakuri player seems to be in a pretty rough spot, mostly because the film players just go so wide so fast. So there's blocker down, heal 1, back up to 3. but not really that many good attacks. Like just basically Katakuri. You could send life and try to help yourself set up for a win next turn if you think you can survive for a turn. And put the kid player to 1. That's probably the play, honestly. Just try to hope they don't have another 10-drop Dofi and that you get to attack for, put them to 1, and then if you can survive, which you have a lot of cards in hand, so you can probably survive. If you can, then you present a pretty overwhelming board next turn. So here's the Katakuri. Swing for 8. Yep, take that one. Untap. Alright, so we're getting into the end game here. The kid player has to decide what their game plan is. I think it's probably just going to be to attack life and just hope for the best. With a bunch of various sized attacks, we're going to have probably an attack for like 7, an attack for 8, attack for 8, attack for 10. We're going to set some Dawn aside for the leader. And just see how it goes. There's a lot of cards in hand from the Katakuri player side, like I said, but we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attacks potentially already of various sizes. Starting off with the Nami seems reasonable. Don't use any of the Dawn, just in case. Put a couple Dawn on the Brook. Swing 8. Yeah, we need to make sure that we're leaving at least 3 Dawn back for the double attack on the kid, and to make it a threatening, and enough Dawn to make it a threatening attack. So we have 7 Dawn total now, so it could be 2 attacks for 9 following the 10k swing. There's going to be a counter out of that, 7k attack. And then here comes the kid attack, 3 Dawn attached. Where's that 4 Dawn? Okay, take that one. Turns into another Sanji. That's a big deal for the Katakuri player. A blocker right at this moment is very clutch. But they had the ability to. What item is that? Is that 3-Zoro Onigiri? Punk Gibson. That takes out the blocker?
Taps a 4 drop.
Cool.
Counter 4K, tap 4 drop.
Cool. So, Katakuri player was not going to die that turn, so we just elected to clear the blocker and clear the Katakuri that was tapped. And now it's time to try to survive this turn of 12 drop attack, or 12k attack, plus Katakuri plus 8k attack. Alright, that's another Punk Gibson in the trigger there. And then an attack for 15 from the Katakuri. And that is the game. Too big of an attack from the yellow player. Kid player couldn't keep up. Yep. Alright, and we'll be back in a couple. Alright, so now we're back at it again. This time it looks like we've got Smoker versus Rebecca, and it looks like we're settling in for a long one. We've got, everyone's got all their Dawn, everyone's still at 4 life. We're just going back and forth at it. Got a Borsalino on the Smoker side. Got a, is that a Luffy over there? And a Sabo, Mangart Sabo. Oh, that's Z. Okay, we got purple black Z Zephyr. On the other side, I like the purple black deck. A little bit of ramp plus those cost reducing navy cards going in. Doing a little bit of both things. Dawn minus lets you play some powerful cards to counteract the abilities of some of those navy cards that, like, while good, they can kind of sometimes be a little underwhelming, but you get all the good blockers with the Borsalinos and the Fukurus and stuff. I like those a lot. Which is going to make it somewhat harder for the Rebecca player to bust through, just because you've got to get around all of those blockers, which is probably what's clogging this game down a lot, is the black blockers plus the minus Dawn blockers. So you have like queens and stuff potentially. There's blockers and blockers and blockers. And since Rebecca can't really, can't attack, you have to have other things on the table to actually start getting through things. Which it looks like the Zephyr player is doing a pretty good job of keeping the board clear. Looks like the Luffy that we have on the table is going to be not untapping next turn. It also doesn't look like the trash pile on the Rebecca player's side is very large. They probably have had to do some board clears. So we'll see how it goes as the game progresses. We've got a Sakazuki, and a couple other. Do you know what both of those cards are on the Zephyr side?
Zephyr side here, Khalifa, Sakazuki, Kuzan.
Okay, I just always see the alt art Kuzan, so I'm not used to just seeing like a normal Kuzan. I like Kuzan. That card's good. A little consistent source of minusing cost. It is kind of neat that both decks kind of have combos with minusing cost in very different ways. The Rebecca player uses all of those Dressrosa cards to minus like Orlumbus and then KO stuff with like Leos, whereas you got Sakazuki's and Kuzan combos and the black on the other side with the navy cards. So a little bit like, it's cool that black has like an identity, but you can execute that game plan in a couple different ways. Alright, we just had a Kuzan hit the table on the Rebecca side. That's something I feel like I don't see very often, is Kuzan in Rebecca. But to be fair, it is just a card draw card, Nothing wrong with drawing cards and having more consistent cost reducing cards, He's an on attack trigger. As far as Kuzan goes, so like Orlumbus, you have to kind of have another character in play to activate consistently. Looks like we're going to be doing an untap of the Luffy, just to make sure it's not threatened from an attack. Got the Kayas going back into the deck to kind of set up that in-game, which looks like where this game is going, is that in-game state where you can like Kaya and Rebecca and just keep churning through your deck and kind of stacking exactly what you want, and just getting to the point where you have those Kong guns and you're just like every turn you're just double Kong gunning, and just crushing people with the double attacks. So that's going to be great to see if we get to that point. The Zephyr players, I would be ideally not letting them get to that point. Alright, another attack from the Luffy. Looks like this is going to be, I would imagine this is going towards a character of some sort. Yeah, it looks like we're taking out the Kuzan just to not have to worry about any of those minus effects. So that way, it's like they can't do something like attack with Kuzan and then play another Sakazuki to get rid of our Luffy. We want them to actually try to have to like attack our characters. I think as far as the Rebecca player goes, not just get to KO them for free. So let's see what the Zephyr player's response is going to be. They're still at 4 life. 4 life's a lot to work with. But to be fair, the Rebecca player doesn't really care about your life. They just want to keep the board cleared for as long as possible before just trying to double attack you out of the game. So, just a nice little back and forth we got going on. Let's see here. What is Zephyr's ability done? -4.
KO to one of your opponent's characters at the cost of 3 or less.
Cost of 3 or less. Then it gains 1,000 power.
So we just lost the 10 drop Kuzan, which makes Zephyr's ability a lot harder to activate.
Yes. Losing was that? Oh, that was 10 drop Kuzan that was on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I thought it was 4 drop Kuzan. Ah, that's a bigger attack from the Luffy side. Is getting rid of the 10 drop Kuzan. Yep. That's worth losing 7 Dawn for, or losing 7 cards in your trash for. All right, Asabo, draw 2, discard 2, solid blocker. Characters can't be KO'd by effects till start of the next turn. That's one of the really interesting things about these black mirror matches now is like Sabos and Borsalinos and all sorts of stuff like that just make it so much harder for the black decks to do their thing, which is like Kango things because of minus cost over and over again. Here comes Fukaru, not just another blocker, like I was talking about earlier.
Imagine being a deck trying to target yellow and red, and you end up against all of the off-meta black decks.
Yep.
Just unfortunate. The dice roll sometimes.
Yeah. So it creates a really awkward game state whenever all of your deck is about KOing stuff, and you're just like, never mind, no one's KOing anything. we're just gonna be playing creatures, playing characters, putting them in play, and turning them sideways and hoping that's good enough. Luffy again not getting to untap because we used 7 Dawn to untap him, or 7 cards in trash to untap him last turn. There's probably going to be a turn where we're going to need to either play another Luffy or just like, not put 7 cards from our trash on the bottom again. We got the Kuzan on the table that maybe can do something this turn with minusing, and maybe we can do a little combos with like a Leo or something, or Kyros coming down. There's a lot of cards in the Rebecca player hand, but that is kind of standard Rebecca fare. You want to try to hover around that 6 range just so you can keep activating that leader ability. And putting more cards in your trash, trying to build that trash to up to 15 cards ideally, and then, get those combo turns with the big Kong gun, double attacks, and just wipe your opponent's life total out in one turn, really. Like, that's the goal. But we'll see what happens. There's probably going to be, looks like we got 10 Dawn getting tapped. That looks like a Kuzan of the Rebecca player's own. So this is a little bit of a different Rebecca list. This Rebecca list looks like it's leaning a little bit more into the Navy stuff, which is very interesting. I don't hate it. I do kind of like more consistently having minus cost that doesn't rely on you having Orlumbus. I've been kind of liking the giant guy. What's his name? In the Rebecca decks to kind of have another way to minus character costs and stuff on your opponent's side, just to make all your combos work more synergistically and kind of. But having just Kuzan on the table helps a lot with that also. Just being like, all your things are -5 forever. I can basically KO any of them with the Leo that I want. Which is exactly what the Zephyr player was trying to do with his own 10 drop Kuzan. Hadruden, yeah, that guy. I like that guy a lot. 6 drop 7K. Right, that is an attack with the character there from the Zephyr player. Looks like a life taken by the Rebecca player. Another, looks like we're about to have a leader attack. Looks like we're trying to size up if we want to do any more Dawn than just a swinging, sending a 5. Sending a 5 seems like a good card, or a good attack to just get countered out, for sure. And that's exactly what happened. Now Sakazuki attack. I would not be surprised if we see another counter here or another taken. Either way, I think is probably fine. Like, Rebecca's got a lot of life to play with, and also has a big enough hand that whenever you get down to low enough abilities, you're more able to just kind of counter out of some of those attacks. Another blocker from the Zephyr player. This is exactly what we were talking about earlier with the Fukurus and the Borsalinos, just building a wall. So now we've got Fukuru, Sabo, and Borsalino all in play, all as blockers, which makes it so much harder. And now a Queen also coming down, like I was mentioning earlier with those purple blockers. We've got just a wall of blockers on the Zephyr side. That is going to make it super hard for the Luffy to get through and get those double attacks going on, because there's not really any recourse for the Rebecca player to kind of just, like, you can play some like Kiroses and Leos and stuff and try to KO stuff that way, but really if you're trying to attack through, you don't really have a whole lot of ways to just avoid blockers like say you have in red. You just have to kind of power through them, especially stuff like the Borsalino that can't be KO'd by effects. The Sabos can come down on key turns and protect you from getting those KOs from the Kiroses. Here comes a Kiros to get rid of one of the blockers, probably Queen, because it has, or Sabo, sure. Does Kiros say 0 or 1 or less? Okay. Sure, getting the Sabo out of there is also reasonable. But another Kiros coming down. Yeah, this is exactly what we're talking about. There goes the Queen. Like, getting those Kiroses in play is a good way to get around those blockers. And now the Luffy is also untapped, because we didn't do anything with it last turn. So now we've got a Kuzan, potentially 2 Luffy attacks, another Kuzan. Like, the Rebecca player is starting to get to a board where they're kind of turning the corner a little bit. Taking that extra damage really helped you kind of build up the hand big enough where you could do something like this. Now we're going to activate, looks like Rebecca's ability. Keep digging, try to find those Kong guns, and set up that in-game state where we're just going to try to make some giant attacks. And the Zephyr player's on 4 cards, but still at 4 life. Not that that life total is super relevant. Now we've got a Kuzan attack. It could be coming at the Sakazuki, it could be coming at lead. I would imagine it's probably just going at the Sakazuki to try to keep that board cleared. Maybe eat a blocker. And because once we can clear up that Zephyr board, we're not really scared about the 1 attack per turn. We have a lot of blockers of our own. Yep, coming at the Sakazuki. Thinking about countering out or blocking. But I would imagine the Sakazuki might just... I could see there being a block here, but we'll see how it goes. Having 2 blockers that can't be KO'd by effects is pretty good. Looks like a Borsalino block, and then looks like they were thinking about countering out. Kuzan's a 10, so that would require quite a few cards to protect. Sakazuki is 7. Okay. So 2/2Ks to protect the Sakazuki instead of wasting the blocker with the Borsalino. Borsalino can be a pretty good attacker, and it's also just an unKOable blocker. So, there we go. There's that Rebecca ability. Look in the top 2, putting a card in the hand. We're not getting a second Luffy. We're just putting that one in the trash. We got an untapped Luffy. We don't need a second one right now, probably. 3 Dawn left. That's Kongun territory, but I think that we're probably just going to continue to do board clear, cleanup. We could probably even attack some of these blockers since Luffy can attack those untapped characters. But I could also see like an attack for 9 at the Sakazuki and try to get more cards out of the hand. There's only 2 cards in the hand from the Zephyr player, so like, yep, if a Guru block on the Sakazuki attack, probably going to put 7 cards from the trash on the bottom, untap the Luffy, and swing another 9 at the Sakazuki player to either eat that last blocker, or eat more cards on the hand, or just get the Sakazuki off the table. It seems like that's kind of what we've committed to this turn, is getting that board clear, and next turn we can start trying to rebuild that trash pile. But it looks kind of like Rebecca's in the driver's seat right now. There's not a whole lot of recourse the Zephyr player can come back with. We don't have any blockers on the Rebecca player side, so you're still a little defenseless at the moment. But like, there's not a whole lot on the Zephyr player side that's really threatening either. There goes the Borsellino to protect the Sakazuki. Then we're gonna KO Akiros, or we're gonna not KO Akiros. We're gonna replace Akiros with a Leo to actually just get rid of the Sakazuki anyway, because of that 10-drop Kuzan. I love that static ability of just giving -5 to all the opponent's characters. It's so good for setting up those even it makes Leo infinitely better if you can keep a Kuzan on the table, which is pretty easy to do when it's a 10k. Like, the amount of commitment from opponents, if they don't have something like a red rock to just like put it on the bottom, is a lot to get rid of those. Unless you're playing like yellow might have a little bit of an easier time dealing with it with the 12ks, but in general, once your 10 drops start hitting the table, they're going to stay there, and that static ability of -5 all your opponent's characters is very, very powerful. Yeah, allows those like combos with the Kiroses and the Leos super well, and every time you do one of those things, you're also adding more cards to your trash pile, which also makes those combo turns with the Konguns more consistent, or those multiple attacks with the Luffys. So we'll see what the Zephyr player can do to answer back with 3 cards in hand and 4 life to work with. Got a little bit of time. There's a queen off the top. Gonna do a little bit more filtering. Draw 2 trash 1. Kind of rebuild the hand a little bit, put another blocker in play. The big problem now is that Kuzan, though, because even like just as we saw last turn, a Kyros or a Leo just gets that queen out of the way immediately. So just the queen and a and now let's see what else they've got going on. We're gonna discard. I don't have any idea what that card is, but regardless, the card that just got discarded.
Which one?
Right there. Alright. And now an attack for 8 from the Zephyr player. This is probably just going live. I think that the Zephyr player, we gotta just get the game over before they find those Konguns. And really start threatening those double attacks and stuff. So I think, okay, yeah, Altered Sakazuki. I haven't seen the Altered Sakazuki. I feel like we just play with normal art Sakazukis. Yeah, I'm just gonna pick up 4 of those right now.
No,
It's probably gonna go up once the next set comes out.
yeah, so too.
No champion Sakazukis though over there.
Yeah, championship Sakazuki's $3,000.
But alright, Rebecca player's turn. Looks like we spent our turn attacking, putting the Rebecca player to 0, which is pretty good. You know, that means we can try to make a big attack for like 15 next turn and just kind of hope they don't have the ability to get rid of it. Looks like an attack for 5 to start things off. With the Zephyr player being at solo cards in hand, like we're just gonna start swinging these 5k attacks and like seeing how it goes. They're gonna have to start taking some damage. And then next turn we'll have our Luffy that gets untapped, and we'll be able to do that Kong Gun, double 13 attack, and probably clean the game up from there. It's mostly just making sure we get out of that next turn. I would imagine here's a Leo, yep, to answer the Queen. Just helping us fill that trash pile a little more, and just clearing out what would probably become a pretty potential, like a pretty potent attacker for our opponent next turn. Because they're not blocking. They're turning that thing sideways. And here's a blocker of our own with Bartolomeo. And then a Sabo. So now we've got double blocker. And our blockers can't be KO'd. Which is the most important part right now. To prevent that 15k attack from coming in. Or whatever big attack our Zephyr player would like to try to do. Now they basically can't do that big play that they would like to do. Because they can't get through our blockers at the moment. So now it's like, do we swing? There's a Fukuru. Do we swing at the, something that's on the table? Do we just like try to play some more blockers? Do we, just sit in face, try to get through these blockers and hope that they just can't keep playing multiple a turn? The problem is Rebecca can kind of just do that. They can kind of play 2 blockers a turn pretty easily for the remainder of the game, if they want to. I don't imagine the game will be going that many more turns. I imagine that the Rebecca player will probably finish building this commanding lead and turn that into a win in short form. But we'll see how it goes. Alright, there we go with KOing a character right there. Then we got an attack for 5, start things off. Again, Kyros, perfect at just being turned sideways and just threatening to deal damage or take a card out of your hand every turn. There's 2 blocks, a 2-card counter. That was probably there's Fukuru getting blocked. And we got another attack on the Sabo side, take another damage, and then here comes the big Kuzan attack to kind of finish things off. Yep, and there we go, Rebecca crushing it. I love that deck so much. I love just drawing cards, cycling through your deck, kind of building those perfect late game states, and also just really like a deck that plays board control. Like decks that are incentivized to attack the board and keep those characters off, which Rebecca can do mostly because you can attack those untapped characters. Like attacking active characters, very powerful ability for keeping things in check. Zephyr looks like they just kind of like stumbled a little bit, but also like having those Sabos from the Rebecca side means that you just have a harder time KOing stuff and getting through with your Navy side of your deck. So you're a lot more reliant on like the big purple stuff, but yeah, it's an interesting matchup for sure. Let's see where we're gonna go next after this. Huh? Yeah, we'll be right back with another matchup. All right, back at it again, another round. Classic matchup for set 4.5 right now. This Don Flamenco deck with probably a bunch of film cards in it versus Katakuri, the big mana deck of the format, the big Don deck. We're just trying to make those 10 drops as fast as possible. I've had a lot of trouble as the Katakuri player against this Don Flamenco deck, and them just going so wide so fast, and just sending 5k attacks at me left and right, drawing cards with Namis and everything. It can be pretty difficult to combat all of that. Just go wide strategy. So we're gonna see how this Katakuri player interacts with a bunch of that. Hopefully they can hit their triggers at the right time and add some pressure back with like some Parasparrows or some 6-drop Parasparrows and stuff. Maybe some Randolphs on turn 5. I think you just kind of want to get stuff on the board as the Katakuri player, so you can kind of combat the Don Flamenco board. And then you also have to worry about the late game with Don Flamenco, because even when you do start building that big board that kind of overwhelms the 5Ks, they're just going to start 10 dropping you, or they're going to come out of nowhere with like a 9-drop Kaido. And those things can be backbreaking in key moments for sure. Like 10-drop Don Flamenco tapping down 2 of your 10-drop big moms can just be like, okay, cool. The whole point is that I get this giant 12k in play, and now you've just kind of stifled that. But, we'll see how it goes. Looking at the own life from the Katakuri player on the attack, keeping that on top, that's always a good sign. It's just like, nice, like, just get to keep this on top. Probably a nice trigger. Maybe a Shirahoshi or something. Looks like a Thunder Bagawa from the Don Flamenco side. Get an extra Don. Nice little bit of extra ramp going on. Going up to 6 already on the play, which is great. Parasparrow from the Charlotte Katakuri side. Just really good to get that on the table on turn 2, so that way whenever these like Usops and Bakurats and stuff start hitting the table, they're a little bit less incentivized to attack with them, because you'll just attack back on them. But the Don Flamenco player can also just kind of build up that board. You have no way to really interact with anything they have untapped, so they can just build as wide of a board as they want, and then just pick their key moments to just start swinging, and then you just can't deal with everything in that one turn on their attack back. And they can just kind of protect the board and go from there. Looks like an attack with the Usopp. That's also reasonable. We got to get the Katakuri player, some amount of damage done, so that way we can build up those key turns. And since we already ramped an extra Dawn, we have a little bit extra Dawn to work with this turn, so we can do something like attack for 6 with this Don Flamenco, put a little bit extra pressure on, play a Nami, draw a card, untap 2, and feel pretty good about it. Next turn we'll go up to 8, which will allow us to do some of our like go wide combos with the Luffy's into 4 draw, like into Brook, into another Nami, draw a card. And once we do something like that, then we have a big enough board that we can start swinging and playing 10 drops, and just hope that that's good enough, And you can do all of that, like with the Thunder Bagawa specifically. Now we've got to be able to do that probably before our opponent even hits 10-drop territory. And if we can get them under enough pressure, then 10-drop doesn't even save them. It takes our whole turn to gain 1 life, basically, at that point. So, like, it feels really bad from the Katakuri player at that point. Like, you want to almost do something else, like have like a Yamato or something where you could like just clear a thing off the board. But we'll see how it goes. We're gonna swing Parasparrow, probably at the Usopp. Just got to get that board under control, or try to keep it as under control as possible, so we can hopefully get to those 10 drops and have them take over the game for us. That is our main goal, is to try to get to that late game as fast as possible. or at least like start hitting 8 so we can Katakuri and clear up some of the board that way. But the fact that the Don Flamenco player kind of gets to just protect the board and not really worry about a lot of other stuff we have going on is a pretty big deal. Looks like we're probably going to be equipping a Don to the Katakuri to kind of see what's up. Look at those life piles. Look at the top card. Kind of help make sure we keep stacking those triggers or get cards that we want in our hand. Looks like another leave on top. We have 5 Don remaining on the Katakuri side. So now we got to figure out what's the plan. We got Spiderweb to protect the Usopp, keep that board wide. Nice untap ability. Then we got 5-drop, probably a Randolph in play. Yep, there's Randolph right there. Just establishing our board, putting a 7K. A 7K will apply a lot more pressure onto those 5Ks from the Don Flamenco side than our Perospero does. Having to equip a Don to the Perospero to kind of threaten cards it's not necessarily really worth it, because if they want to protect it, they will just do something like Spiderweb it, which requires you to equip so much more Don. Or they'll like 1K out. So it's more like the Randolph will probably be a better attacker for those. Alright, we're gonna Usopp on Perospero. No reason to protect it, we just want to keep drawing. If people attack your Perospero, it's like, cool, thanks. I'll just keep drawing through my deck. Like, that's an attack that wasn't coming at me. So let's see what else we got going on. From the Perospero side, or the Don Flamenco side, attack for 5. Yep, take it. Perospero in play. We knew that was on top because of the Katakuri attack last turn, which makes us even more likely to let our first Perospero die if we know we're going to get another one immediately after that. Just like, yep, that's cool. Here's another Perospero. I had a game a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was like a week ago, where I was playing Katakuri, and I was playing against this deck, and I just went, put Perospero into play, put Perospero into play, put Perospero into play, put Perospero into play, like off 4 life in a row, and it was awesome. I just immediately built this giant board that could combat their board. And it was great. But obviously I had to take a lot of damage to get there, so but it was pretty cool to put just a bunch of triggering your abilities is awesome. All right, we got a Kid coming down. Does Kid put something else into play? I assume so.
You can rest it to put a 3-drop or less.
Okay, just rest it to put 3-drop or less into play. Is that the one that also has to be attacked?
If it has 1 Don equipped, it must attack it.
Okay.
If it's sideways.
Yep. Can you put a Don on it? Like now, for example, well, they had to untap at the end of turn. All right, cool. But yeah, that Kid's great.
Players forget that it has to have 1 Don on it.
And they just attack it anyway. Yep. Katakuri, or Eustace Kid, kind of a sideways blocker. That's kind of a cool ability that we don't see a whole lot in the game, and it would be actually kind of neat if they did more of that, like something where a blocker that you can attack with is something that's really, really neat. Like, I think there's a lot in the game that's already kind of incentivizing you to attack with some of those like bigger blockers, like the 5-drop 6K blockers, or like Borsellino and stuff. But Kid being able to just like come into play, put a thing into play, and if you have the Don extra, equip it, they have to attack it. And then he's an 8K, right? Yep. So he's so hard to get past, especially at this point in the game, that like he can kind of just take over a game by himself in a way. Katakuri player still 1 turn away from starting to play those 10 drops, but we're still at 3 life, so that's a pretty good sign that we can at least start deploying 10 drops, and that they will be able to kind of hopefully affect the board in a good way. 7-drop, that's going to be Lin. One of the things that's interesting about the Katakuri deck is that once you've played against it enough, the plays feel pretty scripted. Like they're going to do pretty much the same thing every turn, and you know what that turn is going to look like every time. So as long as you can plan around that, you're like, okay, I know I'm going to get critted on turn when they have 7 Dawn. I know I'm going to get 5 drop 7K'd on turn 5. I know I'm going to get Parasparrow on when they have 3 Dawn. I know I'm going to get 10 dropped on turn 5. Like, you can kind of just plan your game plan around knowing that they're going to do basically exactly what you think they're going to do every game, which is kind of neat. As opposed to some of the decks that have like a lower curve that just kind of can have like multiple 5 drops or 4 drops in play, that are kind of have a couple different options. The Parasparrow deck is very like almost scripted. It's doing very powerful things, but it is very heads up also. You know they're going to just play giant things and swing them at you. So you just got to beat that. Looks like we're trying to figure out if we want to equip a Dawn, probably to the Eustace Kid. Looks like we are going to equip the Dawn to make sure all those attacks have to come at him first. Now we've got 9 left. It looks like we're debating on whether or not we wanted to play something big like a 10 drop. Then here comes a Kid attack. We only have 2 cards in hand from the Don Flamenco player, which is very interesting. We've been using a lot of those events to keep this board, all of the spider webs and whatnot. So that attack came at the Randolph, looks like. Now we've got an Usopp attack on the Parasparrow. Trying to decide whether we want to protect that or not on the Katakuri side. Also, the Katakuri player only has about, looks like 3 cards in hand. So we're kind of at a pretty low resource point in the game where both players are kind of running out of cards in hand. There's a 10 drop. So if we didn't have one, now we know for sure that it's coming down next turn. If we didn't have one before, which good chance that already probably happened. But now we know that we need to start really applying that pressure as the Don Flamenco side, because we know that there's going to be 10 drop, possibly another 10 drop, and so on and so forth as the game goes on. So we're just going to start swinging those attacks for 5, 5, 5, 5, and just keep going. I would not be surprised if we see something like a Kaido or something with this 9 Dawn that we have left, since we didn't attach to anything, or I guess just another attack for 5. 0 power characters can attack 2. That is something you should always remember. And then here's a Brook into play. Untap 2. We have 1 card in hand. Let's see where we go from here. Looks like Katakuri at 2 life. We're going to very easily just be able to take advantage of going 10 drop. We'll start with a swing on the Kid. Yep. Protect it with the I always forget that character's name, but it's 2K. That's all that really matters. Never play that one. Yeah, Shiki. Mostly then in the deck for being a searchable 2K that you can block with. There's 10 drop like we expected, and then just a pass back because there's no point in attacking with the lead. We have to attack with the lead on Eustace Kid. League couldn't get through that, so we send 1 with the Lin to try to get the Kid off the table. They protected it. So now it is, can you kill me before these 10 drops start taking over the game? Which, to be fair, the Don Flamenco player has done a good job of doing what they're supposed to do, which is build up this board of 5K, 6K, 8K attacks, to where you can just start swinging and you're taking a card out of your opponent's hand every time. Eventually they're going to run out of cards that can counter, and they're just going to have to start taking damage. Their blockers aren't very threatening to you. So you just go attack, 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 attack. That's the game plan from the Don Flamenco side for sure. Here comes the attack with the Usopp. There's another counter. There's attack with the Brook. We're going to take that one. Shirahoshi into play. A lot of S names in the set, you know. Shirahoshi. Draw 3, discard 2, help us dig for more 10 drops or whatever else we need to survive. Maybe like a Thunderbolt or something to get something off the table at this point. But But what's really, I think, going to kind of take over this game is it feels like this kid has had a very large influence on just being something you have to attack first. Um, like with this, Big Mom 12k attack, you would think would be basically a guaranteed damage, but it is not going to be a guaranteed damage with that kid on the table. It's going to be, all right, get that kid off the table. And then it's going to be try to figure out how to deal that last 2 points from there. Maybe we can play another 10 drop, put them to 0, attack with the 10 drop, and then we have like a 5k and a 8k attack from the Big Mom. That's not the worst. We'll see how it goes from there. But it looks like we're probably going to be able to survive this turn pretty easily as the Katakuri player. We're still at 2. There's 2 attacks left that we know of coming from the Don Flamenco player. 1 card in hand. If it's Kaido, that's going to be pretty brutal. But we'll see how it goes. Probably equipped 1 Don on the kid now. So that way we have to attack the kid. And it also just makes a more threatening attack. Kind of the best of both worlds. That looks like it was going at the Lin Lin. So easy counter out there. We got to save as many attackers as we can. And then, yep, here comes 9 drop Kaido, the card that ends games. Dawn -5, 6. Give it rush, KO a 5k or less. Sure, get Shirahoshi out of here. We don't want to deal with that anyway. Oh. But yep, that's a pretty easy. Yeah, you got my Lin Lin that time. Is what it is from the Katakuri player. So now we've got Big Mom attack on the kid. To finally get that off the table. Which is good because that card has been kind of dominating and protecting that last life, last 2 points of damage from the Don Flamenco player taking it for a while now. It's so interesting to say a while, but it's really been like 2 turns. One Piece games are like so fast but so slow at the same time, There's just a lot of ebb and flow, a lot of decisions on each turn, and every turn matters so much. Here comes another 10 drop, just like we thought. Go back up to 3, crit that last life. And then we got a good old attack of swing 5. And since the last card in our hand was Kaido, that means that was good enough. Don Flamenco gone. Just no cards in hand to block with the attack for 5. And there it goes. Yep, Big Mom is a powerful card. Just getting those crits consistently. So we got 3 crits that game. 3 points of life just directly dealt damage to the opponent between the 7 drop Lin Lin and 2 Big Moms, or two 10 drops. That's usually good enough whenever you start at 4. You just had to deal 1 other damage, and most people want to take that first one. So that is kind of the name of the game for the Katakuri player. Just like, I'm going to deal as much indirect damage to you as possible, and then I'll just try to deal the last one. But very close game. I think that if the Don Flamenco player would have gotten to untap, the Katakuri player was at such low enough resources that they could attack back pretty easily for the win there, especially with the Kaido on the table. So, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. Come back in a little bit. Cool. All right, back at it again. Here we got Rebecca versus Katakuri in a game that looks like it's entering its final stages. We got 1-1 life remaining. The Katakuri player just has a Katakuri on the table. The Rebecca player has a Sabo, a Orlumbus, a Kyros, and it looks like a Kuzan. Just played a Luffy. That's not a good sign for the Katakuri player at 1 life. But to be fair, Luffy can't attack leaders on the first turn. It can't attack leaders as though it has haste. It can only attack characters. So the Katakuri player will probably have another turn. But that Sabo, like, one of the big things about Yellow is that it has a pretty hard time dealing with blockers. Outside of like Thunderbolts to clear 1, which we do have one life left, so you could potentially crit, but you're probably not going to do that with the Rebecca player having cards in hand at right now. But we'll see where it goes from here with that Luffy in play. I think there's probably some amount of thought to equipping some Dawn on the Luffy and swinging at the Katakuri. Looks like we got at least 1 coming on it. 8 at the Katakuri. That's a good attack. Like, they have a lot of cards in hand, but, you know, they're probably going to be incentivized to discard at least 1 for that. Yep, there goes a Strusen, which is a 2K also, so that's a good thing to just get out of the hand. Not a whole lot of those in the deck. Looks like here comes 7 cards on the bottom. We have a giant trash pile on the Rebecca side. This game has probably gone on for quite a while. I would imagine that there's been some amount of 10 drops already gotten played. I'm actually kind of surprised to see the Katakuri player's hand so large. Makes me wonder what all they got going on in that grip. You know, like what tricks they have up their sleeve at this point. There's 7 cards. Untap the Luffy. And we will see if this is a untap the Luffy to attack again, or if this is an untap the Luffy to just not have it be tapped and exposed. Trying to just figure out how to order those cards. It can be so important, especially at this point in the game, how you order those 7 cards. There's some games with Rebecca where I feel like it doesn't matter as much. You should always be cognizant of it. But, like, alright, looks like another attack for 8 and another card discarded. It's kind of interesting to just do the attacks for 8. I wonder what else they've got going on that they're going to be replacing on this board. Okay, Leo. Looks like that's going to answer the Katakuri at the end. So basically, I think that the point there was I'm going to play Luffy, attack Katakuri for 8 a couple times, get 2 cards out of your hand, and then we're going to play the Leo and kill it anyway because we had the Kuzan to minus the cost. And then be able to just activate Rebecca ability and just keep filling out our grave, our trash pile. Looks like there's only about 4 cards or so on the Rebecca side. We're very much in that in-game state where we can just start stacking the deck. But that was an attack for 15 with a Thunderbolt to get rid of the blocker, and that's good enough for the Katakuri player to just be like, we're getting out of here before I have to worry about you stacking your deck. And Katakuri wins. I guess we'll be back in a couple seconds. Alright, jumping into another game here. Looks like we've got Katakuri versus Zephyr. This is a pretty interesting matchup. I think that the reason to be bringing Zephyr to a tournament is for the yellow matchup. That's kind of what you're hoping for, is that you're your navy cards and your cost reducing can kind of help you answer those 10 drops as they hit the table, or these categories and stuff, and just kind of KO all their stuff, and then just have stuff of your own left over. You also get to play a lot of blockers, especially ones that can't be thunderbolted, so you can kind of insulate yourself in the late game against these big attacks, like the 12Ks whenever they attack a Fukuru and not your life total. That feels pretty good. So that, I think that is one of the main reasons to be playing something like Zephyr, especially with all those purple cards like Queen that you get to add into your deck. That 5-drop Queen is just so powerful. Like I kind of wish that card got had a reprint at some point, or gets a reprint at some point, because it being only a starter deck card is pretty brutal. As far as a card like that's going to be that ubiquitous and played in so many decks right now. But we got a Big Mom on the table, looks like, and then here comes a Katakuri attack. Here comes a counter. Here comes a Sanji attack. Here comes a counter. And yep, that's that's where we're at. I think that Katakuri seems to be pretty much in the driver's seat this game. It looks like it's going to be pretty hard for the Zephyr player to deal what looks like to be at least 3 life, if not 4 life, to the Katakuri player before taking 1 more damage with a 12k, an 8, a Katakuri, and another Katakuri in play. But we'll see how it goes. I've been surprised before, and I'll probably be surprised again. One Piece players know what they're doing. Hey, look at that. There's a Beppo. And yep, that's it. Looks like Zephyr players like, yep, can't get out of that one. We're getting out of here. So wrap up for that game. Nice little neat. Alright, back at it again. We got Katakuri v Katakuri. Got, looks like a 9 rolled by one Katakuri player. Trying to decide who's going first. And alright, and we're about to be off to the races. So, I feel like Katakuri v Katakuri is always an interesting matchup. Like, you're trying to do the same thing. I feel like who's on the play, who's on the draw can matter quite a bit. Being on the going second means that you get to be at 10 a turn sooner, which means that you can 10 drop faster, but being on the play means that you get to attack first, maybe play a game that's a little more aggressive, and start stacking your own life triggers a little bit more easily. Alright, well, let's see where it goes. I also feel like almost every time I watch a Katakuri game, there's like one player that's always like super far ahead on like the life total, and then they just wind up like getting behind at some point. Just an attack for 5. Pretty easy take. Nope, there's a Shirahoshi. That's pretty good. I'm just off the top. Draw 3, discard 2. Do a little filtering, help us find some of those bigger drops that we want to play. Maybe also, if we already have some big drops, find that mid-game card that we want to be playing. I think playing out the Brûlée on turn 3 is pretty interesting. Like, we want to use our Dawn as much as we can, and something that, like Brûlée is a good way to spend it, so we just get it on the table, so that way we don't have to worry about playing it in the late game when we want to just start going 10 drop into 10 drop into 10 drop. We can just already have it there, and our opponent just has to get through it later in the game. Same with this other Katakuri player. We're playing the Sanji, blocker Sanji. Just getting those on the table. This one can actually attack, which is a little bit of a difference between the Brûlée. The Brûlée can also attack, but it just requires a lot of Dawn, so it's probably not something that we're very interested in doing. But yeah, I think that playing out these blockers early is a really good thing to do in this particular matchup, where there's not a whole lot of recourse from either side to like punish you for doing that. Alright, attack with a Katakuri with a Dawn on it. Let's start looking at some life totals. Reveal to both players. We'll take that Capone because we're playing on webcam, and we'll just probably put that. I think leaving it on top is reasonable. I think putting it on bottom is also reasonable, but leaving it on top makes a lot of sense, just to make it to where you don't have to worry about that trigger in the late game, and just be like, you can have the counter power in your hand, but I don't want that trigger to matter. If you put it on bottom, it can oftentimes swing the entire game. So just getting that one out of the way is great. Adding a Paraspero to the board is also great. It's just another way to keep applying pressure in the matchup, which is kind of where you want to be on the side where you're going first. You want to be applying, I think, more pressure. since you're going to be 10 dropping second, um, which is the way the game kind of plays out. All right, well, let's see what this category player's got. Looks like we're going to be equipping a Dawn, potentially starting off with a swing for 5. That's great. Yep, but counter out. The Charlotte Cracker's not going to be, usually not going to be doing a whole lot in this game. Like, it's hard to kind of set up. We're going to be looking, there's a Sanji blocker. I could see that going. That'll probably get taken and put into play. Yep. Again, another card that you would rather just know heads up for now that I need to just get around this, as opposed to I need to play around this in the late game when I'm trying to present lethal. And then adding a Randolph to the table. That's the benefit of getting to go second, is you get to get those Dawn attacks with the Katakuri while also playing slightly more on curve, like playing just a slightly bigger thing each time. And we're gonna start with attack with the Paraspero and attack with the Katakuri, both on the Sanji. Just trying to get that off the table. Makes sense. It is a blocker. We don't want them to have very many blockers. If they're willing to discard cards, I think we're okay with it. And now we also have 7, so we're probably looking at playing a Lin Lin, a 7-drop Lin Lin, to either crit or heal one. Probably crit, considering the category players at 4. And yeah, we're just really trying to protect that Sanji, which is also reasonable. Like, if our opponent's going to give us 1k counter outs to protect our blocker, I think that's perfectly fine. One thing that is very interesting to note, whenever the top category player was playing that Sanji, he did discard a 10-drop, which either means we have multiple 10-drops in hand, or like we're just like we want to make sure we have counter power. But I imagine that the game's going to boil down to 10 dropping back and forth. And having more 10 drops seems better than having less 10 drops. There's a counter out to protect. Here comes another attack for 5. That's another counter. Here comes an attack for 7. Gonna take that one and then play a Katakuri. Figure out what we're gonna put. We're okay. We're just gonna tug the Sanji back on the bottom for the late game. If we can get to the point where in the late game we're just like playing blockers and hitting Capones and stuff, then we're gonna be in a pretty good spot to kind of mess up our opponent's turns. But this is kind of what I was talking about. It feels like there's often like one Katakuri player who feels pretty far ahead in the early game, and then it gets to the point where they're just like, alright, I'm going to start 10 dropping, and the game just kind of changes to a different mode. The Katakuri, I think that what's the most interesting thing is, like, even though you get to go first, like, the fact that you don't get to 10 drop first is a pretty big deal. So we'll see what follow-up play we can do for our 9 Dawn turn. Looks like we're gonna start with an attack for 8, probably on the Randolph. I don't think it makes sense really to attack life whenever they're at 4. And 8 is a good enough amount that they probably aren't going to protect it. I don't think it's worth the 2k to protect the Randolph at this point, and they might not even have a 2k to do it. And discarding 2 cards would definitely not be worth it. Alright, a big attack from the Shirahoshi. We're just going to try to go wide now. There's a 5, and then here comes another 5. And then here comes another 5. Or here comes an 8. Another Shirahoshi into play. Look at that. Just like you draw it up. Everyone loves just putting Shirahoshis into play and drawing cards. Or at least I do. I'm a big fan of Shirahoshi. And then here comes another 5. Just trying to go as wide as possible after dealing with that Randolph. I think that the turn probably would have been mostly about getting Randolph off the table at that point if it didn't die so easily. And now it's like, cool. Now we have free reign to just be like, we're even in this game up. I have a giant board. I'm going to go wide. You have 2 life. I have 2 life. You can 10 drop. I can 10 drop. And then we're basically at the same. Like, we just both added a 10 drop to the table. But I have a big board that can attack you. Attack for 5. This is probably going to be countered out. And then there could be an attack for 8. I would not be surprised if Brule jumps in front of this attack. Yep. Untap on Katakuri side. Play a 10 drop. Back at 2 and 2, and I'm just gonna attack you for 5, 5, 5, 8, 5, and start getting cards out of the hand. So let's see if that's what actually happens. We did have this Katakuri player discard a 10 drop earlier in the game. I would assume that means that they have a second one, but who knows? Maybe they're just like, I'll draw it. Yeah, it looks like there's multiple 10 drops in that hand potentially. Looked like there might have been 2. Can't really see it, but I could see trying to set up a scenario. We know the Sanji's on the bottom. Okay, looks like there might be an equip of some Dawn. That's interesting. That would okay. I could see trying to deal some damage first to try to get it down to the Sanji, because you know the Sanji's going to come into play. So if you can deal 2 and avoid some triggers that way, and then play 10 drop to get rid of the Sanji, then you don't have to worry about the blocker. So I could see that being a line that you'd want to potentially try to take, just to get more cards out of hand, try to avoid as many detrimental triggers as possible before playing your 10 drop and doing the crit. Alright, there's 10 drop. I think it was worth exploring the line. It seems like the line kind of just like was like, yeah, they're going to counter out of our 5k attacks and other things, so that's fine. If they're going to counter out, we're still getting cards out of their hand. And now what we can do is we can apply enough pressure at this point where they're either incentivized to continue countering out, or they're going to take 1, and if they take 1 more and we know that Sanji's there and we have another 10 drop, then we can still do the play the next turn, but have a 5, a 5, an 8, a 5, and a 12, and that's probably good enough if they don't have the blocker from the Sanji. And we'll get to keep our Sanji blocker up at that point. Yep, another counter out. That's reasonable. 1 card in hand from the Katakuri player. It's going to be interesting to see what that last card is, if it's going to hit the table or not, and where our 12k is going to go. 2 life is a lot to work with, especially trying to get through a blocker. With the Sanji on the table, I think that it kind of means we're going to be potentially looking more into like a board control role. But at the same time, it feels like when you're doing that, like with a 12k on the table that's going to attack you back, like that feels like a pretty sad position to be in. So we'll see what the what this Katakuri player has up their sleeve with these 2 cards in hand. And looks like a nice watch too. I don't see a lot of watches these days. I don't know. I don't really ever see people wearing watches.
Yeah. Nice accessories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of One Piece is played before you even draw your first card.
Yeah, showing up with a watch.
What
You know,
accessories
you'll know
do you
what
have?
time it is the whole time during the match. You'll know how much time's left in the round. Just
It's a real acknowledgement that you'll be on camera in the feature match area for the day. It's a real flex.
yeah.
You know, I gotta accessorize, jewelerize
My hands specifically, got to make sure as much accessories on the hands as possible. Next time I'm on a webcam stream, I'm going to make sure I wear gloves.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, here comes that 12k attack. Not sure where it's going. I would imagine it's going somewhere like towards the Lin Lin. Oh, I guess the blocker Sanji took it out. Took out that attack. Sorry, I got distracted by watches. Wasn't paying attention to what's going on in the game. Yep, getting Paraspero out of there, which is a little bit dangerous. If they didn't have another 10 drop, now they're more likely to find it. Or another like Brulee blocker or something. There's a Pudding. Pudding will give us another shot at finding something. Or just be a 1k. Here comes a Katakuri attack. Yep, that's a life down. There's a Brulee into play. Just that free blocker, so important. There's another 10 drop. Makes sense. Crit that last life. One card in hand, though. So, this is a very interesting game state we've got. 2 10 drops is a lot to deal with. It looks like we probably want to get the opponent dead sooner rather than later. With 1 card in hand, they're pretty vulnerable. So maybe we can figure out enough attacks this turn to get through all of the stuff that they've got going on. Starting off with an 8k attack from the Lin Lin, 7k attack.
It was an
8?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he should have attacked. He should have went.
5k attack first. No.
I'd probably go 4, 8, 8, 12.
Alright, so that was 8 on 8, attacking the Katakuri. And then we did 12 on 12 for the Big Mom.
I think he should have put Dawn on Brulee, swing to go 7k.
Sure.
Then now make his leader 8k, and then he can make this thing a 9, and then that can be whatever.
Yeah.
Because he was only had one. He had these one. I guess the last life was Sanji, so it's tough. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Brulee could have.
There comes 10 drop. 10 drop, good, but in this situation it's very interesting because it's like we took a board control role there, which is probably reasonable, but our 12k on 12k attack didn't work out. They were willing to use their last card to defend it. There's a chance that if we're going that route, we need to actually put like 2 Dawn on the Big Mom to guarantee that we get their other Big Mom off the table. But if we don't have like another blocker or something, then maybe we have to make sure we get the heal 1 off the Big Mom, and hope that they can't. They just didn't have a counter power in hand. They happen to. So now we're facing down an attack for 12, an attack for 12, and an attack for probably 15. 16 because of the leader ability. And that's probably good enough through 1 blocker. We'd basically at this point have to hope that the life we gained off the Big Mom, which we don't know, is like a Capone or another blocker. If it is, then we're smooth sailing. And there it is, Capone!
Ooh, all right.
Oh!
Shiroshi for 10. Can you get out of it? Shiroshi for 10. Can you get out?
And now it's deciding, do we Shirahoshi for 10, or do we play it safe and do something else with our Dawn? Shirahoshi for 10.
Yeah, it's Shiroshi for 10 every time.
And that's why Shirahoshi's in the deck, you know, for these type of scenarios.
For 10.
Sometimes you just put 10 Dawn on a character and hope that it's good enough.
Yeah, it looks like it
It looks like it probably is. We'll see. There was another 10 drop in hand. We're revealing the Dawn. Looks like that 10 drop was good enough. Or that 10k attack was good enough, as it were.
Keep talking.
Shirahoshi for 10. You know, zero. Like I said earlier, 0 power characters can attack 2. And sometimes that's all it takes. Alright, we're going to jump right into another match. Looks like another Katakuri mirror match going on. Katakuri v Katakuri is the name of the game right now until OP5 comes out. And then we'll probably never see Katakuri again. It's just going to get replaced by an L. So, enjoy it while we have it. It's nice. I mean, I guess there's a chance that some decks still want to play Katakuri just because you get to play Big Mom. Big Mom very powerful, but like, let's see here. We've got a Big Mom on the table. We got 2 Big Moms on the table. Big Moms everywhere. There's a last life taken there. Looks like, and there's an attack for 17.
And that's gonna get us out.
And that's about it. That's all she wrote. Let's see if there's any more tables we can go to while we're flying around the last bit of this round. Looks like we got at least one more match out. This one, it looks like a new law versus our Zephyr player that we've seen a couple times so far today. I really, really, really like New Law. It is fun to play, but also super weird and plays in like a different style than every other deck. Like, you want to get to like 5 Dawn and then just have 3 Dawn a turn for like the rest of the game. You just like want to just activate that leader ability so many times and just keep putting all their stuff on the bottom and just keep building a wide board of 5Ks and just attacking. It's like, you don't get to have anything in play, and I'm going to attack you a bunch. And that's what we're going to do. And I'm not going to have any Dawn. There's a chance that sometimes you'll be able to get like enough Dawn where you get to... This looks like a game where they've gotten down to a lot, like not very many cards in hand. So now the Dawn gets to build up a little bit more. Looks like a lot of back and forth has happened in this game. Zephyr can kind of keep up because you have a bunch of your own purple stuff that you're trying to Dawn minus that's kind of doing a similar thing. But also you get to clear the board pretty good with those black characters and the cost reducing, because almost everything on the lost side is going to be a 4-drop. So it can be pretty easy to minus those costs enough that you can just like clear them with whatever you have in your deck. Like even like Tashikis or whatever. I guess those give minus cost also, but all your KO effects are just very powerful against them, I think. Alright, that's a take for 7. 3 cards in hand. There comes a Zoro. Here comes an attack for 8. Can you get out of it? Do you have a 2K? That's the question that we are asking with this attack. Looks like 2 1Ks and an OK. Alright, and there's Law.
That concludes the rounds.
Alright, and that is that for that round. Thank y'all for tuning in for that one. I don't know if there's a 5th round or not. There is?
We'll be back to let you know.
Alright, we'll be back to let you know. For now, thanks for hanging out with us. Are you Alright, thank y'all for tuning in today to this Three Swords Productions stream talking about the PPG Online Local Tournament. We saw some pretty cool decks today, a lot of Katakuri, but some Zephyr, some Rebecca, some Law, some other stuff, and I had a good time. Hope y'all did too. And see you next time.